Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod. The two amigos alongside me, or online I should say, Alan Quinlan and Matt Williams. Six Nations starts tonight. Everyone is absolutely buzzing. In Paris, France v Wales. We'll look at that later. Alan, if we come to you first. Dublin tomorrow, Ireland v England. Ireland going for 3 in a row. It's never been done. What do you make of it? It's so good to have the competition back, but this test for Ireland is going to be huge. Simon Easterby, the new man in charge for the next couple of months. And what a day it is for him and his squad.
Yeah, there's a bit of pressure on him, Stuart. I think November wasn't as free-flowing as we would have liked. We won 3 games out of 4. The New Zealand game, first one up, was a bit disappointing. Obviously, to lose against a very good New Zealand side, so that's not completely unexpected. But I think the other performances were a little bit below par, and Ireland were lacking a small little bit. Still had some really good moments for sure, and but a few question marks around the attack, which was such a strength in the previous couple of years, and that continuity that was a big strength for Ireland. So yeah, it's a tough challenge tomorrow. Andy Farrell is away. It's Simon Easterby now, as you said. A lot of familiar faces in the team. So there's a bit of pressure on them to try and deliver and get their game going, really. I think the expectation is high. Sometimes that's a little bit unfair. But with England and France this year, there's an opportunity to do something that no team has ever done before. So, yeah, it should be a cracker. It's really exciting. It's great to have the Six Nations back again. And England will really fancy their chances coming here, given they've beaten Ireland in Twickenham last year. They're on the back of 12 tests last year. They lost 7 of them. They won 5. It sounds a lot worse than what it is, because the 7 losses they had, 3 were against New Zealand. Scotland was in there as well. Australia, South Africa, and France. So there's small margins for them, and it was a kind of a negative end in November for New Zealand, or for England, but. Maro Toja said it this week, hasn't it? They're looking to cause an upset tomorrow in Dublin, and they have a chance. They have a strong side.
Part of the team that upset Ireland in Dublin 2019. Matt, Simon Easterby, as we've talked about there, he's been with Ireland for the last 10 years, assistant and then forwards coach, and that, or vice versa. Do you see much different from this Irish team under him? Or will it just be the same old and trying to add a bit more layers? In a good way, that is the same old. But do you see anything that springs to mind that might vary in your eyes from an Easterby side compared to a Farrell's?
I do, Stu. If I could say that is such a great strength for Irish rugby, the way that they have internally had a succession plan. So, this started with Joe Schmidt. Andy Farrell was there. Simon Easterby in that process. Andy becomes a head coach. Andy moves on. It's only for the Lions, but then Simon takes over. I mean, this is just a really solid, smart, professional way of moving, of transitioning between coaches. Compare that to the schmozzle that's been Australia, and in many ways, if we look at England, the schmozzle that England have done for their defensive coaches, and I'll come back to that. There's been more English defensive coaches than English prime ministers in the last 5 years, and that's saying something. And let's come back to your original point.
Matt, you'll be going viral again. You know that with talk like that.
Well, mate. Let's just say that England, since they lost the World Cup final to New Zealand, what is their defensive coach? They've appointed so many defensive coaches over that period of time. 2 of them were Australian Rugby League guys, very good men, Seabold and Hodgson, Brett Hodgson from my club, the Rugby League Club, West Tigers, from Australian Rugby League. But neither of them had played or coached a game of rugby, yet they were put in immediately as international defensive coaches. What do they know about the tail of the line out, where the forwards are 10 metres in front of the backs in defence? That never happens in rugby league. Then they brought in Felix and said, we're going to put in a South African defence. Oh, no, we're not. See you later, Felix. So how are England defending? England, I've got it, last year in the Six Nations, Ireland only let in 60 points. People forget that. People are talking about, let's put Jacques Nibar's Leinster defensive. Ireland's defence has been exceptionally good in last year's Six Nations. The next best was Scotland on 100, and I think it was 114. England let in 123 points last year. In the November internationals against Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, they let in 9 tries, only scored 6. Their defence against Australia was appalling. They should never have lost that game. So their defence, what is the defensive DNA of England? We don't know. So there is a problem for England. Ireland don't have that. We come back to Easterby. There is going to be a progression, but the biggest, a continuation of what Andy Farrell did. There will be changes. And the biggest influence a coach has on the team are the people he selects in that side. And what has he done? There is no Peter O'Mahony. He's put Ryan Baird in at 6. That's massive. And he's put Prendergast in at 10. That is huge. And Jack Crowley's back on the bench. And I really respect that. I really respect that. And can I give you a theory on that? So we come back to why Easterby's done it. And I do not want to punish Jack. I hope he rises to the challenge. And despite what the Munster people say, I admire the guy, and I think he's a really talented player. Here is the fact that I don't have any proof of this, but may have done it. Finn Russell kicked 95.7% last year in the Six Nations. Thomas Ramos.
Well, I think as Thomas Ramos had a kick at goal, he heard Matt and he froze. If we look at the selections, Alan, that Matt's talked about, what do you make? Ryan Baird coming in at 6. Yes, Joe McCarthy's injured. And then Sam Prendergast at 10. Could you see that happening once you had heard about the McCarthy injury? And as for Ryan Baird, this is a time he really needs to step up. What do you make of him, Alan, as a player? And firstly, do you think this now is his time?
It's a great opportunity for him, no doubt, Stuart. And I think I didn't see it coming because we all presumed that we didn't know about Joe McCarthy being injured and picking up an injury until the squad was named. So, we assumed that it was going to be Ty Byrne at 6, Joe McCarthy and James Ryan in the second row. When Joe McCarthy is out, the option would have been to put Ian Henderson straight into the second row and leave Ty Byrne in the back row. But Ian Henderson hasn't played a lot of rugby. He's had a few injuries. He struggled a little bit with form with Ulster. A lot of experience, and he's still a very good player. And he has a real point to prove in the Six Nations, I think. Ryan Baird brings incredible athleticism, line-breaking ability, speed and movement around the field. And a line-out option, a really good line-out option. Ireland had some issues around the line-out.
Did you think, though, Alan, he'd be further on in his career than he is now? Or is that a bit harsh?
He's kind of that utility player between second row and back row, isn't he? Which sometimes can be a strength, but it can always also be a weakness because... he just seems
to have so many attributes that you'd want to be a cracking rugby player. And have more caps than he has.
Yeah, and then he hasn't established himself. He got a head knock against Argentina, which finished his November involvement. So hasn't always started because Leinster have so many options in that back five of the scrum as well. So incredible athleticism. Nobody has an issue with him starting quality-wise because he has that ability, and I think he's obviously a bit more mature. And I think his line-out credentials are very, very good. He's a line-out caller. He's someone who he understands the line-out well. He would have ran line-outs in his underage setup in the 20s. And he brings a little bit of X-factor in the sense of that attack. There's very few back rowers who can move like him. He has such acceleration and pace. So I think it'll help Ireland's attack because it gives a more dynamic speedster in the back row who you can use with crossfield kicks. You can use him on the edge of the pitch as well, but he's got to be physical and he's got to stand up to an English pack tomorrow. I think first and foremost that'd be the primary objective for me. Is Ireland have to be really strong physically, because there's no doubt in my mind that England will come to Dublin with a view to unsettling Ireland and being really physical and aggressive and winning collisions and stuff like that. So that's what we got to see from Ryan Baird. He's an incredibly talented player and a really good line-out option as well. So even though it was a little bit of a surprise in a sense, of course you could have put Jack Horan in the back row as well, or brought Cormac as a Chukwueze in, but they've gone for someone who's in the system for a while and has incredible talent.
Matt, I think you're back after you're chatting on Ramos as he kicked the 2 points. But go back to your original point there about why Jack Crowley mightn't have made the cut and Sam Prendergast got the jersey, plus the other factors of why it's happened.
I was ranting on in my hotel room here for a good 2 or 3 minutes till I realised I wasn't talking to everyone. It dropped out. But Ramos kicked 89%. Finn Russell 95%. Jack only kicked 74.7%. Now Sam Prendergast has not played much Test rugby, so let's forget his Test rugby kicking percentages. But in the URC, he's kicked 91%. So look, they are significant numbers when you're coming into winning championships, and you've got to have a high potential goal kicker. And I think that could have been the reason why Easterby's done that. So again, you come back to your original question, Stu. What do we see different from Easterby? As Alan just said, we've got Ryan Baird, a phenomenal athlete. I've been saying he's banging on the door during the November internationals. They went with Peter O'Mahony, and I can understand why. It's nothing against Peter. Greatest respect for Peter. He's a great old warrior. Again, has Easterby said, listen, we've got to start going for the next World Cup now. That appears to be the case whether Peter comes back in later on. Whether is this game, as Alan said, because there is no McCarthy, Joe McCarthy's injured, we need that line-out option. We'll see in future weeks. But it's certainly shown that Easterby in his first ever game backs himself and his players and his staff to make some big calls. So, and if we just come back to Alan's other point, what can we take out of the England selection? Well, they've got a 6-2 bench. So they are saying we're coming here to scrummage, to get penalties from scrums, to kick to the corners, to maul for tries, kick out penalties, kick a lot of box kicks, kick a lot of crossfield kicks and contest. That's what they're going to play. It's going to be a negative game plan. Now, it's very similar to what South Africa played, but South Africa defend magnificently. And as my point beforehand, England have not been defending well at all for over a year, maybe even going back 3 years. So it's going to depend, can England, have they put in place a new defensive system? We know they've said we're not using the rushing defensive system from South Africa that was brought in before. We've tossed that aside. So what is their defensive identity? How do they defend? What are the confidence they've got? Joe Schmidt brought Australia here, cut out all the not nonsense, but dumbed down in many ways the defence to an old-fashioned defence. Let's stay connected with the guy left and right. We're not worried about the space here. We're going to take the space between us, but we're also concerned about the space between defenders. And he pushed the guys forward. They pushed Ireland to the sideline. The wingers stayed connected, and they pushed them to the sideline. And Ireland didn't like that one bit. And I know Ireland didn't play particularly well that night. But that was because Joe Schmidt's defence didn't let them. Now, have England learned from that? Have they gone to school on that? Are they going to show that sort of smart, connected defence that Ireland's short passing game does not like? Ireland have beaten South Africa 4 out of 5 times because a rushing defence leaves spaces between the defenders. But you've got to be good enough to exploit it, and Ireland have been. So a connected defence that doesn't come up as fast but doesn't leave any space between defenders, Ireland's attack does not like. So we don't know what defence England are going to throw out. But Easterby has said, okay, I want another runner in Ryan Baird. I want another line-out option. I want a high percentage or a higher percentage goal kicker than Jack's been showing. And we're probably going to play the same short passing game offence, and Prendergast is part of that. So Easterby's, he's put his hand up and he's been brave straight away, which I admire.
Alan, if we look at England, for the first time ever, 2 twins will play in the same team in the Curry brothers. Caden Murray also makes a debut. Interesting this week, Ben Youngs was speaking, saying he believes England can win in Dublin. He was part of the team along with the Toji that won in 2019. They're not as strong as they were back then, surely, Alan. The results tell you that. But do you have a bit of fear? Do you feel that Ireland could be shut down and could lose at the weekend?
If they're not right physically, I think, and slow out of the traps, I think, and allow England get confidence.
So if they give a performance like they did against New Zealand, they'll come out the wrong side of the result?
I actually don't think the performance was that bad against New Zealand at all. There was just a few things, that a couple of line-out losses. The discipline was poor. Very small margins. Like, we I think a lot of us forgot in New Zealand, or again for the New Zealand game in November, that it's New Zealand, it's the All Blacks. Mightn't be vintage All Black teams that we've seen in the past, but they were rebuilding. And if I thought Ireland did a lot of good stuff in that first half against New Zealand. Their breakdown counter-rucking was outstanding. Their defence, their pressure they put on New Zealand, but they just gave away soft penalties at times, and they kept tipping away at the scoreboard. And then you're chasing the game a little bit, and Ireland got frustrated, lost a couple of lineouts. But there wasn't a huge amount wrong. That was actually. I think the thing that probably surprised me the most was we expect Ireland's attack to be at the level it was at, and Matt will know this from a coach as well. You've got to reinvent yourself all the time because people are analysing you, and a lot of what the particularly Argentina, Australia and New Zealand did in November is they stayed connected in defence. They didn't overcommit at the breakdown at times. They got loads of numbers across the field. So a lot of those passes that go out the back door for Ireland were quite lateral. We were probably not accelerating onto the ball. And New Zealand went after the source as well, which was the breakdown. So it was a little bit slower. And I think a lot of Ireland players were looking around, waiting for something to happen. So they just need a little bit more ignition around that. I don't think they'll change that positive attack that we've seen. So they just got to be very careful because, again, old school mentality. But if I was England coming to Dublin, I'm saying rip into Ireland. Let's go after their scrum, their line out, the physical collisions, and win the kicking game. Because I don't think that England are going to, score loads of tries off us. We have a very good defence, as Matt said. This is a very good Irish team, but they've got to win those small moments, which become big moments. I.e., the kick chase, the contest in the air. I think Ireland scored 11 tries or more in November, but a lot of them were from set piece, and there was a couple from 5-metre taps. So from that first kind of phase, Ireland were getting a lot of their tries came from that area. But it's just that multi-phase broke down a little bit for Ireland, and it can be very wearing. We've said it for 2 years. You know what Ireland are going to do with that attack, but it's just no team could really stop them at times. New Zealand got those tries in that quarter-final, and they were kind of strike plays that hurt Ireland a lot, and things went wrong in the game, and of course there was performances like that. It was just a low performance, that one. But the question mark here is, can Ireland reinvent that bit of ignition again, or are we on a little bit of a decline? We'll know after tomorrow, but if you're asking me now, I think Ireland, I expect Ireland to have, really analysed what happened in November. And if they get that level, they'll still probably win the game. It mightn't be the prettiest, but if they can figure out a way of speeding up their tempo and their pace to their game, they could do very well in the Six Nations. But obviously, that's the intrigue, isn't it? It's not a young team. There's some young players in the team, but there's a lot of guys who've been around for a while. England will fancy this, and they picked the back row 3-7s. Essentially, Ben Earl has been playing number 8 for England now for a couple of seasons, but he's traditionally a 7. The two Curry, so they've kind of made a decision to say, announce your team early in the week. We're going after your breakdown here and speed of play, and And then you have the unpredictability of Marcus Smith. If Alex Mitchell doesn't kick the ball every time at the base of a ruck, and they give good quality ball to Marcus Smith, well then, if he goes, if I was his coach, I'd be saying, show us some of your magic, have a real go here. And if something sticks for England, they get a couple of scores, of course they can cause problems for Ireland. So it's a very, very dangerous proposition, because you look at their forward pack, George Martin and Atoje, they're big, physical, aggressive players. They can unsettle the opposition a lot. Strong front row as well. Stuart has been playing really well for Bath, the tight head. And Ellis Genge is going to go after Finlay Bealham. That's not a really secret. That's going to shock Finlay Bealham or anyone in the Irish camp. So, yeah, look, it's two very, very good teams. I think England have underperformed, essentially. They've had sporadic good performances in the last 12 months. But if they can sort their defence out there and become a miserly team, and they can make a real match out of this tomorrow. So it is a very dangerous proposition, And again, I would be surprised if they didn't speak about 2019. There's a couple of players in there who were there in 2019, and Ireland came off the back of a really good year, and England were the start of Ireland's downfall that year. So they'll be trying to replicate the same type of performance.
Matt, a final one on England-Ireland. And Alan touched on reinventing the attack, so to speak, and Andrew Goodman's been in a while now. Is the pressure on him? And also, if we talk about improving and adding a layer, what can you do as an attacking weapon if the cohesive stuff isn't quite working? How do you change that? Or do you just do the simple things better? Or is that far too obvious?
Well, no, it's not, Stu. If you think back to November, when we look at Ireland's attack, we've got to remember, firstly, you've got to win your set plays. So, as Alan remarked, New Zealand disrupted Ireland's line-out on a few occasions early on. And so the line-out is going to be super important, and so is the scrum, so the set plays. Now let's just talk on the scrum for a second. Alan mentioned it, but Joe McCarthy's out, so we moved Tyke Byrne into the second row. So the second rowers, people often blame our props at scrum time. The power coming behind the props is super important. So you look at the huge second rowers that England have, and they're going to be coming right at us, as Alan said. Genge is coming, and Loosehead coming at Bealham, and we need our second rowers to really work at Bealham's side. So be interesting to see, will they move James Ryan across to tight head, because that's where Joe McCarthy was, or does Tyke Byrne go in there straight away? So it'll be an interesting proposition to see how they do that. So it's not just our props. So first of all, they've got to get the ball. Then if we go back to November, it was exactly what you said, Stu. I think it was the New Zealand game. I can't remember Aki making so many mistakes, so many drop passes. I think it was 4 drop passes against the Kiwis. We just had a litany of balls put on the deck that this Irish team just didn't do. Now, there were still holes and there were still gaps, but if you don't, in a short passing attacking game, which Ireland have executed brilliantly for a number of years, you've got to be accurate. And that is another reason, perhaps, why Crowley has paid the price. And we remember when Frawley came on, Frawley's passing wasn't great. Frawley's paid that price. So yes, it is that just the simple stuff you say, do it better. The second part of that is the execution of a kicking game. So you're going to take the ball forward 3 ways: maul, kick, pass and run, right? So the pass and run, you've got to carry it forward. So the cross-field kicking game, or the short kicking game, and playing the game in in England's territory was something they didn't do, especially in the New Zealand game. I think we gave away 6 penalties that were kicked, 18 points in other words, by giving away penalties in our own half, and we just didn't play territory on a wet night in Dublin. So all those things, and as Quinny said, the team didn't play hopelessly, but the margins are so fine that if you add up a couple of those, okay, we lost a couple of mauls, we didn't kick properly, the passing game wasn't right, you can't possibly beat New Zealand, and you won't beat England as well. So they do have to have those things in place. And then the unknown is, what are England going to do? We know they're going to go scrum and line out and break down. How are they going to defend? Now, if I was England, I'd be having one of those Curry brothers just going straight at Prendergast. You have got you're empowered to go out of line and make Prendergast play deep. If they can make Prendergast play deep, they mightn't touch him all game. Give him a clip if you can, but they mightn't touch him. But if Prendergast is forced to play deep, Ireland's passing game will not work. So there's a whole lot of tactics that England can bring into it that they haven't done in the past year, but that doesn't mean they won't. Now, we talked about 2019 just to finish. That's what England did in 2019. The speed of their defensive line was phenomenal. They were catching Ireland's attackers behind the game line. There was a different attack. It was Joe Schmidt's very conservative attack, but they constantly forced Ireland backwards. And it's very interesting. They've moved Henry Slade into 12, swapped he and Ollie Campbell around. I like the swap. Henry Slade will be talking in Marcus Smith's ear. He is a second five, but he is a great leader. He's a tactical thinker, and in offence and defence. So there is a lot of pluses to that English side. Talent is not England's problem. It's been their execution of their tactics, and they can get that right. So it's like Alan said. This if England get it right, this could be a really, really tight game for Ireland.
Ollie Campbell or Ollie Lawrence, Matt, they're both as good as he's...
Campbell,
I could not pick that, just in case he's listening, you know what I mean? And you, Quinny, would really appreciate that.
It's a Freudian slip because I looked up Ollie Campbell's kicking percentages the other day. I had it written down, so my apologies. I'm sure Ollie Campbell is good enough to play right now. We got give him a call. Ollie will be out there.
At 12 or 13, it wouldn't matter.
That's all we're good, and we put Tony Ward in at 10 if we put him at 12.
And you at fullback. Right, we must move on to the game tonight in Paris. Favourites France, Antoine Dupont, arguably the best player in the world, back after 7 heroics. Into Mac as well, first cap for 17 months after recovering from that serious knee injury, although he has played a good while for Toulouse. And Alan, it's pretty star-studded, to say the least, that team. Bale Beret in the wing, Ramos. Yes, there's a few injuries, the likes of Pinot, Dante and Ficou. A different type of France, because those are sort of the old warriors, even though they're quite young. Give Wales any sniff at all?
Very little, Stuart, given...
More than last year?
Yeah, they went the whole season without winning a test match. Yeah. They had some moments in throughout the year, and I think it's player personnel. They've gone for, some of the tried and tested. I think they still have a lot of players in that team who haven't not got a lot of experience playing high quality teams, and I think it's been a tough year, a really tough year. There's a lot of criticism on Warren Gatland, but and I've said this probably a few times as well. I'm not sure any other coach would have come in and got results given the personnel they had available to them.
It's the worst run ever on 12 in a row consecutive tests.
Yeah, it's any other coach coming in there, I'm not sure they could have done anything different because they were overpowered and just punished in a lot of areas. I think my biggest concern is the physical presence of that French pack. Alexandre Rouma's, we've seen him play. He played number 8 for Toulouse last year in that Champions Cup final against Leinster. He's more primarily a back row player, but can play second row. Flamont is missing. Tao Fefenua is out as well. But then they have Miafu, the second row. And then the usual faces, I think Mo Vaca is an incredible hooker, Antonio, and they're the kind of things that you worry about, that those type of players, Boudons in the back row, Aldrich, Francois Cross, they're a powerful pack of forwards. And I think if Wales get enough of, if they get any sort of parity up front, of course they can ask questions. I think Liam Williams is still a quality player. Tom Rogers was really impressed with the Scarlets this year. He got some great tries. And
Josh Adams is in there, as well, as you say.
Yeah, Josh Adams is a good player in the wing. I think Ben Thomas at 10, he's 7 caps. That's been a big issue for him.
And was at 12 as well, and he sort of moved in.
So look, it's a tall order, but it's a tough place to go for your opening game. But you never know with France. I think Dupont and Intermac coming back in will certainly give them, they'd give any team a lift. They're just unbelievable players. But France had a poor Six Nations last year. They drew with Italy. They won a game in Scotland with a last try, a controversial TMO decision at the end of the game. Ireland beat them in Marseille. They struggled to get past England the last game. So it was a very much up and down kind of Six Nations. But their argument is hangover from the World Cup. And I think they took it a lot worse than we did. You lived there, Matt. I think it was like they were in mourning for a long period of time after going out of the quarter-final of the World Cup themselves to South Africa. But Fabien Galtier, and you mentioned the injuries, they've just a raft of players they can bring in. Baresi has been brilliant for Toulouse. He's only 3 caps. He's 26, but he's been superb. Mofana in the centre, he's still only 24. Brilliant player as well. And Bié-Barry, what a player he is. He's just, we saw in November the pace, the quality, and the way he's been playing for Bordeaux as well. So they're just quality right across the board. But again, maybe mentally, will they look at Wales and think, we've just got to turn up here? Wales could cause them some problems, but it's highly unlikely.
Matt, on Wales, at the launch, speaking to Warren Gatland, straight away, it was quite good. He was just like, everyone's writing us off, which I'm okay with. And also, France are traditionally slow starters. And then he pointed out last year in Ireland's defeat. So he is trying to rev it up, definitely to his team, saying, why not? But off the back of the results, there's no real evidence to say they could win in Paris, is there? But they did do it in 2019, didn't they? Very different situation, mind you.
Mate, and they still had some...
Like George North and everyone else?
Yeah, talismanic players, Alan Wynne-Jones was still playing then, one of their greatest ever players and captain and leader. And, he could rally a team because he's such an inspirational player. Look, the bookies rarely get it wrong, Stu, and they're giving Wales 28 points.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So a full bonus point before they've started? Try bonus point?
Yeah, that's it. Our colleague Robbie Carney there, I was talking to the other day, and he said it could be a record loss. I'm with Rob. I just, you look at that Welsh side, and let me endorse Quinny's comments. This isn't a coaching problem. Warren Gatland is a highly knowledgeable guy with an unbelievable record, but he doesn't go out and make the tackles and make the plays. Which one of these Welsh players makes the French team? Not one of them. Not one of them would be selected for Wales. Not one of them would be selected for Ireland. But they're trying their hardest. Look, it's not the problem. It's a talent problem. And I can't see them winning a game in the Six Nations. Now, rugby's rugby, and you can be wrong. They can come out and everything could go wrong. There could be a red card here and there. There could be a thunderstorm come through, all that sort of stuff. We've all seen that before. But right now, all things being even, they could get a bit of a hiding tonight. That is a very good French side. And remember, Damien Penaud's out. He scored 6 tries the other day for Bordeaux. But the kid that's replaced him is a 20-year-old, Theo Adesgobi. Now, he plays for Pau. He played fullback for Pau. This guy, he's like the Roadrunner on the old cartoon. He has got afterburners on his feet. They have got that. He and Biel-Berry are 2 of the fastest guys in the tournament. The only guys I could say around the world would match him would be Chisel and Colby and Jordan from New Zealand. These guys are lightning. Then they've got 3. France have got 3 absolutely fantastic ball players. You've got Dupont. France play their 9 as a ball player, and he could do anything. He's the best 9 I've ever seen play. You've got Entermac. Then they've got Ramos, who was the 10 all the way through when Entermac was injured, playing fullback. Ramos is kicking close to 90%. You look at that forward pack and that back row, and then the bench. You've got Merchant. As Movaka's a fantastic one, but Merchant's on the bench with Cyril Bay coming back from injury. Like that is, and Le Grec, who's got the misfortune of being an incredibly talented 9 in the same generation as Dupont, he would be starting in most other teams around the world. That is a very good French side. The other part about the French is exactly what Alan said. They had a bad year and they know it, and they're really annoyed. they're really motivated. At the Stade de France tonight, with Dupont back, who is a national hero after winning that gold medal in the sevens. Like the Wales, like Gaddy, I don't understand what Gaddy's saying. What else can he say? But mate, they're not climbing a hill, mate. They're climbing a mountain, and it's a big, big mountain. And I can't, in all honesty, I cannot see a way out for Wales. We know rugby; it can be different in rugby. We know all these things, but that's like to me. Over the next 7 days, France's championship will be there. If they can win, they'll win tonight, I believe, and win well. They go to London next week, as they say, to take on the roast beef, to take on the English, as they call them, and then in Le Crunch. If they win that, then it's all going to swing on, I think, on the game against Ireland, the second last round. But right now, France, to me, are the best team in the competition.
They do have a habit of finishing second, though, in this competition, don't they, Matt? They do. They always seem to finish second, yeah?
They do. Yeah, they do. And how many times have we said it in the World Cup, they've let us down. But there's still, like, we look at November, who was we talked about Ireland's form in November. Who was the country in the Six Nations, of the Six Nations teams that had the best form? France. Yeah. France played magnificently in November. Now, they'll get Dupont back in this side. They'll get the leader, this inspirational leader back. You know, it will. They've got 2 hard games. They've got England away and Ireland away. They're not easy games, for sure. And England will not be pushovers in any way. We've just said all that. But if we're pushed on that point, you've got to say it's France, then Ireland, then England. But England are in a powerful position. And then Scotland, we're going to say the same thing. I know we'll talk about it in a minute. But you'd have to have France in front of a lot of them. Looking at that team, knowing you still got Penno, Gail Fickou, Wardy, Flamont, and Gelange, and one or two others to come back into that side. If they get them all back, and some of those guys are going to be back next week, that's a really powerful team.
Interesting stuff. Well, you touched on Scotland, Matt. And outside of the predictions, it's always my favourite word on the podcast. Scotland and how they get on. Let's look at their team. Dave Cherry and Bordeaux lock Johnny Gray are in their first caps in 2 years, and Stafford McDowell replaces Sone Tuipulotu, who will be a huge loss. May well start in the centre for the Lions, but a lot to be rugby to be played before that. They'll take on Italy, who beat them last year. Italy won 2 games and a draw, their most ever points in the championship. Alan, you're always a bit more optimistic about Scotland than Matt. Where do they finish, actually? We'll go for that one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's I look back last year, and I think we nearly say it every year, Scotland are contenders. They started struggled against a Wales team that were missing so many of those experienced players and a lot of new faces last year. They won 27-26.
And what were the 27-0 up at half time, or 24-0 up or something?
Yeah, Wales came right back, and it was very dominant in the first half, but very unfortunate, I should say, to lose against France. But it was a game that they had there for the taking. They stopped playing in that second half when they took the lead. They became very negative, and France got that late score. A good dominant performance against England, and they've got that. They've got the kind of ingredients and the feel-good factor of beating England in the last couple of seasons, and they've had success against them. But then they go to Italy and they lose there, and came to Dublin. Ireland it was a kind of an anti-climax, Ireland winning the championships against Scotland there, because we never shook them off completely, and Hugh Jones gets that try at the end, and it makes a nervy finish. But I think Tuipulotu missing for them is a huge loss. Scott Cummings as well, who's been very, very good for him. But I've said this probably before. When they have their moments and when they get on the front foot, and when Finn Russell and Duhan van der Merwe get ball, and
Darcy Graham,
Kyle Steyn, Darcy Graham, these players, they can be superb. So they've got to deliver up front. Johnny Gray comes back in with Gilchrist in the second row. yeah, they're just the unknown a little bit. But look, they've Italy first up, so they can, I think, get their revenge for last year's loss. I think they're a real challenger for this tournament because they've got 2 home games to start with. They'll really fancy their chances against Ireland Sunday week, and if they were to turn Ireland over, they can start. They won't be that fearful going to Twickenham.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking if they beat Italy and Ireland and lose to Wales.
Well, who knows? They may outdo themselves. But look,
maybe they won't.
Let's talk about what they have now. They have a very good side.
And they do.
Went to South Africa. The vast majority of these players went to Glasgow, won a URC, and maybe that will help them getting their hands on a trophy. They've become quite resilient, and I think they'll be a very difficult side to play against. And if they get enough of possession, and I said if Finn Russell is on song, Tupelote is such a loss because I think he's been the best centre in the world in the last 12 months. So who knows? They beat Italy and Ireland. As I said, they'll fancy it going to Twickenham, and then they're home to Wales, and the last one is France. So it's hard to say if Scotland will win the championship or they're one of the favourites. They need a lot of stuff to go well, but for me, this team has got to win 3 games in the championship. They won 2 last year. They've been very inconsistent, and as I said, shown glimpses of really good moments in games and very, very dangerous attack, but they've been overpowered and got at by the opposition. So, a little bit unknown again, but they have a lot of talent and quality in that team.
Matt, lastly, Italy, and this is a fascinating one for them because after 2 wins and a draw, they've never been in this position where people are like, well, go on, back it up again. And that's what Cascado was saying. He was like, that's part of the dealings with it going into this championship. Sebastian Negri hadn't won matches in years until last year. Even Garbisi. There's guys there with 50, 60 caps, but this is a very different comfort zone for them.
Very much so. And you look through that starting 15 and a couple of boys on the bench, it's a very good side. Interesting, Tommaso Allen at fullback. Perhaps there again for his goal kicking. When you got Ange Capuzzo there on the wing, you thought you might have had him at fullback because he's such an outrageous talent. But they've moved him onto the wing to bring Allen into the side for that reason. So there's probably a little bit more pragmatism about the selection. But, this is a really good Italian team that are benefiting from the great academy processes that Steve Aboud, an Irishman, put in place there. And lots of talk Steve's going to go back. There's a new president who's pledged to reinstate that academy process that I thought was the best in the world, and then they tried to demolish it. Now there's been big proposals and suggestions. We've yet to see where that finally ends up. But these guys are the result of that process. I think this is a good Italian side, and I think they'll win some games here. I certainly expect them to beat Wales. What can they do at Murrayfield? Well, here's the problem. The Scottish team is undoubtedly talented and undoubtedly plays some fantastic rugby. The opposition is not the problem for Scotland. It's themselves. When they play well, but they could win the championship, but they haven't been able to put 5 quality games together for in Gregor Townsend's time. As Alan said, they had that French team beaten for all money. And I thought the last try should have been awarded to Scotland. I thought they won that game. Now the referee and technology not the referee's decision. The referee was hamstrung as well. Technology let them down. They had a smart ball technology that we believe they're going to take into this Six Nations. It would have told them where the ball is, and it was a try. Now they didn't, but they should never have been in that spot. They should never have been in the spot where they score 28 points or 27 points in the first half against Wales, and then Wales come back and score 26 in the second. That's always has been their problem for so long. They are an excellent side. Minus Tupelote, I just agree with everything you guys said. I think he's been sensational. He was wonderful in the November series. I have read that he's out for the whole tournament. It's only you can't confirm that, but if he is out, that makes the Scottish process so much harder. At home against Italy, you would suspect they should win, but we also have to say our mindset and our prediction of how Italy will play has to change, because the Italians are playing far better, and they are deserving of a change in our attitude to how we describe them. So I think this will be a much closer game than everyone says. If Italy got up, it would be a surprise, but not surprising, because it's a quality side. And it's going to depend, again, which Scotland team turns up. If the good Scotland turns up, they're capable of beating anyone in the world. But if they don't, and they proved that in November, they turned up, they walloped Australia. Australia was second rate in that game. They turned up against the Box. They didn't play well in the first half against the Box. The Box are a great side, but they didn't perform to their best. So that's what we've got to wait and see, where they turn up.
Win in Edinburgh will be some feat and go back-to-back over the 2 years. Right, we're going to do something different. Instead of predictions, we're actually going to rank where the teams will finish. And I've got the phone out here. No pen and paper. Nathan Kelly, our social media producer, is beaming in there as I send him the message of where I think we'll all finish. Alan, you look puzzled, but I'm going to go to you first, because I know you might sit. I know you might sit on the fence for a bit.
We've had plenty. Al and I have had hours to sort this out.
Well, you broke up in the call. That's why you went offline for a couple of minutes to write down your scores and your teams. Right, Alan, where are we all finishing?
Oh, France, Ireland.
Yep. This is great.
England, Scotland, Italy, Wales.
Whoa.
Well, that's 6 teams anyway.
I got some bad news.
Matt, are you going likewise, or how much are you mixing it from Alan?
I have got, Alan and I have just put the kiss of death on that. That's exactly what I have.
Oh, you've never agreed with Alan, ever.
I agree with Quinny on most things.
No, I'm not having that. So you're going the same.
That's the way I would see it right now. Right now.
And will I go, or do you actually care, Matt, or will I go here? What?
Oh well, mate. Look, do I care?
Do you only
no, not particularly. Because I'm just watching it. It's not my. I can't do anything.
Do you care what I do in the 6 teams?
Oh, sorry,
I know you don't, but I'm doubling up.
I do care what you do, Stu, because you will never let us forget it. If you get it right, we get it wrong. So yes, I do.
Right. You know,
Come on, Stuart. I'm going to take Stuart McAvoy role. Stuart, tell everyone at home and put it out on social media. What are your choices?
Okay. You ready for this, Alan? Scotland.
Oh!
France. Ireland. England. Italy, Wales.
Wow, you're going for a job at BBC Scotland. That's what it is.
Do you think Scotland will beat France in the last game and then start for France?
Looks like it.
Okay,
and if they finish 5th, does that just show you how clueless I am?
I don't know what it shows you, but if Scotland are to win the championship, they've got to go to Twickenham and Paris and win both those games. Which, under David, if they unleash and everything goes according to their plan, they're capable of. I would back against Scotland going winning games away to Twickenham or Paris, but it's a very tall order to do it. Twice in the Six Nations, given the players that are missing, I think Tulo is a massive loss to them. But look, that's your opinion. You know what?
I didn't put. There is a stipulation, and it doesn't matter where you finish. If I win this or get all the 6 right, you both have to give me €20 each.
Okay, but there's not a chance you'll win it. But so we'll agree to that.
And you'll transfer the €40, together.
I think Ireland, France. Well, that's Ireland's only way of stopping France from winning the championship. Then it'll come down to points difference, I think. But France are capable of putting up big scores on teams if they want, and if they're in the mood. So it's going to be very tight. Let's hope we don't have a kick fest though, because I suspect we're going to have a lot of kicking in this with the new law change around opening up that traffic, that channel for when teams kick. So it's kind of cup rugby, isn't it? And teams.
That's right, 20-minute red cards. We could go on all day about these new laws as well.
Yeah, look, you have to try them, you have to give them a go. I just suspect that we're going to see a good bit more kicking because teams don't want to take chances and risks in their own half, and it actually becomes it gives the kicking team really more of a chance of winning the ball back and gaining territory as well. Now that they can't be escorted back, they can't be blocked off, and if teams are accurate in their kicks, they can be very effective as well. So I'm sure Ireland are going to kick a lot as well. Give some hard spot kicks. They just go to the sky, that they're unbelievable. I think he's an incredible box kicker. So I'm not saying that teams should do it, but I think we could see a lot of box kicking.
Okay. Do you want to come in one last point up, Matt?
Yeah, look, I agree with Alan completely on the box kicking, completely. And I hope we don't have it, but I agree with Alan. We will. It's at least a matter of time. And look at the team England. We're going to see it tomorrow night at the Aviva, for sure. For one good law, and it's still only a trial law, that everyone should keep an eye out for, is that the scrums, the defending 9 has to stay.
You like that one?
Yeah, that's been in Australia for 40 years. It's a safety law that was brought in the 80s at under 19 level. It just literally makes scrums quicker. So let's say you're Ireland tomorrow and you're up against a scrum that's dominant, England trying to dominate you. You can put that ball in and get it out lightning fast, and the defending 9, the English 9, isn't allowed to come around and harass Gibson Park. He has to stay on his side of the scrum, where his front row is. And if anyone that's been watching Top 14 rugby, Toulouse have been practicing this. On the right-hand side, they're doing 8 9s, going right, and the ball is in and out of the scrum in under 2 seconds. And it's just creating this fantastic attacking platform off the scrums. And we haven't seen in 20 years. Literally, we have not seen such a good attacking platform in 20 years. Now, here's a crazy part. I love this part. Stu, I think I've told you this. This was brought in 1985 or 86 in Australia. So the guys who first played under this in Australia are about to turn 60. And World Rugby still wants one more year as a trial. Like, they've been trialling this for 40 years. Like, that is unbelievable.
Matt, I'm going to go back and scrum up again.
My bongo drums are telling me South Africa, because they've got a dominant scrum, we're not sure we want this. What's this going to do? The dominant scrums don't want it because it allows attacking teams to get the ball out of the scrum rapid. And the backs get the ball, liberates the ball. So, we've already got this bias against backlines and how they're being selected. But this is a good thing. But after 40 years, we've still got to give it one more year of let's just see.
No
so when all those boys had this,
you'll get in trouble.
I'm too old to get in trouble now.
Matt and Al, thanks as ever. It's going to be a great few months, and don't forget to tune in Virgin Media 1 at 4 o'clock for the big one from Dublin. It's Ireland against England.